This is fun! Hello!
Big Ed, scrub my feet!
Did you see anything? Huh?
Eddy!
You know, there's a lot of good shows out today, but sometimes people like me like to go back and watch some older stuff. Especially stuff from our childhood, such as old cartoons like Eddy and Eddy. Cartoons that were pretty good back then. And, you know, sometimes it's just good to do that. Well, I'm thirsty. I'm gonna go get a drink.
Look at me!
Okay, so apparently cartoon characters from my childhood are in my kitchen right now. Well, until the wormhole that originated there brings everybody back to their proper dimensions, let's look at another game review. And since the Eds are down, why not a better time to do this, right? Ed, Ed, and Eddy. What's there to say about this show that hasn't already been said? It's one of Cartoon Network's most popular shows, if not the most popular show, and is still loved today by many fans like me who grew up with the series. Now, in my Samurai Jack review, I talked about how much that show left an impact on me as a kid and how much I love that show. But Ed, Ed, and Eddy, on the other hand, was the show that I always looked forward to seeing a new episode of the most out of all the cartoons that was shown back in the day. Just like Samurai Jack, Eddy and Eddy was part of what I consider the golden age of Cartoon Network. The series was part of Hanna-Barbera and Cartoon Network's Cartoons Collectives at the time, along with Johnny Bravo, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Sheep in the Big City, Time Squad, K&D, and many others. Back then, these were the cartoons that were worth watching every Friday night. Just imagine you're a kid between the years 1996 to 2003, and every Friday night after a busy week of school, and you got all your homework done, you treat yourself to new episodes of some of your favorite cartoons you've been waiting all week to watch. And of all the cartoons I loved watching as a kid, Eddy and Eddy was my favorite and still is to this day. It was funny, the characters were likable, every episode made me laugh, and the show has even gotten me through some tough times in my life. And even at the age of 23, I still enjoy watching this classic. Although during my preteen to teenage years, I did enjoy some of the shows that were shown later on Cartoon Network like Regular Show, Chowder, Adventure Time, and Steven Universe, along with watching a shit ton of anime, they didn't have the same charm that made the cartoons I used to watch as a kid enjoyable. This was how 90s kids rocked it back in the day, and cartoon blocks have never been the same since. Eddy and Eddy was created in 1999 by Danny Antonucci, who also created the cult classic comedy short Lupo the Butcher in 1987. Later on, he founded the animation studio aka Cartoon in 1994. During the mid to late 90s, Antonucci created some adult animated series for MTV, such as Cartoon Sushi and The Brothers Grunt. That's right, before there was the Eds we all loved and grew up with, there was this.
I'm gonna die!
And this. And of course, this.
Repson will keep your breath fresh and minty, even after eating. Suck, don't chew.
Just looking at these, you can tell these shows have almost the same art style as Eddy and Eddy in some ways, except they look much more, wild, I guess you could say. It's honestly amazing that the guy who made these weird and disturbing looking cult classics went on to make one of the best children's cartoons ever released. which ironically started off on a dare. And what a dare that was, because if it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't have had this cartoon that many kids of my generation grew up with. Despite these shows' grotesque art styles and features, I would honestly recommend giving these shows a watch. It just shows how far Antonucci has gone throughout the years with his work. But now let's focus on the show itself. Eddy and Eddy follows the adventures, or should I say Edventures, of our three titular characters. Ed, voiced by Matt Hill, the simple-minded yet lovable lump with superhuman strength and a love for gravy and buttered toast. Ed, voiced by Samuel Vincent, who is more commonly known as Double D to take away from the confusion between him and Ed with just the one D, is the goody two-shoes and brains of the group who knows how to put his smarts to good use, and is also the voice of reason. And finally, Eddy, voiced by Tony Sampson, the hard-headed, scam-loving leader of the group who never misses an opportunity to make a quarter by scamming off of someone. The Eds live in their home of a suburban cul-de-sac in the fictional town of Peach Creek, along with the neighborhood kids, including Kevin, the neighborhood bully who picks on the Eds and has an unhealthy obsession with his bike, Rolf, the kid from a foreign land known only as the Old Country, with stories and traditions related to the culture of his home that the kids find hard to understand, Johnny 2x4, the weird kid of the neighborhood whose best friend is a literal piece of wood he calls plank, Sarah, the spoiled my way or the highway little sister of Ed who is never shy from making her dim-witted older brother's life a living hell, Jimmy, the sensitive best friend of Sarah who is so sensitive that a clothespin to his foot gives him a serious injury, and Naz, the girl next door character who is surprisingly the most mature of all the kids and is on good terms with everyone including the Eds a majority of the time. And then let's not forget the Canker sisters, three trailer park girls who are obsessively in love with the Eds to the point where they harass them in almost every episode they appear in. Although the Eds tend to get along with some of the neighborhood kids, in general they are treated as social outcasts who are never invited to parties, hardly get treated with respect, and aren't as popular due to the constant mishaps they're responsible for on the show, although they try their hardest to fit in. The interesting thing about the characters of the show is that they are based off of people that Antonucci knew in his childhood and even Antonucci himself. Some examples include the Eds, who are based off of Antonucci's own character traits in addition to the traits of his own two sons. Rolf is also based off of him and his family considering that they were Italian immigrants and had different cultural customs during his childhood. Johnny is based off of a kid Antonucci knew who also befriended inanimate objects, and even Jimmy is apparently based off of one of Antonucci's spoiled cousins. Honestly, it's a genius idea to make the characters of the show based off of the people from your childhood. It really gives a more in-depth look of what Antonucci's life was like for him back then. One of the main aspects of the show is that in almost every episode, the trio attempts to pull off scams for the purpose of purchasing jawbreakers, which when I was a kid, I wish the ones in real life were as big as the ones from the show. Now, although the Eds love to pull off their scams and a lot of them were pretty creative and entertaining, that wasn't a majority of what was going on in the show. A lot of the episodes focused on certain themes and unique aspects that make every episode of this show enjoyable to watch. The episode can range from a focus on Double D's relationship with his parents via communication through his sticky notes, Ed pretending to be a monster and wreaking havoc, the Eds making a fake version of Rolf's homeland which gives more background on his old country's culture, the Urban Rangers episodes, and even an episode where the Eds don't appear at all until the end, putting more focus on the cul-de-sac kids. One of my top favorite episodes of all time was 1 + 1 = Ed, which I like to call the LSD episode. This is the one where the three-headed Rolf meme originated from.
Hello, Ed boys. Many doors, yes? Too much for couch potato Ed boys like yourself.
A three-headed Rolf. Yawn.
Almost every episode follows its own original plot and theme, and no two episodes are the same. There's also the specials that cater to holidays such as Christmas, Halloween, and Valentine's Day. And of course there's the Alien special during Cartoon Network's special Invaded crossover event back in 2007. This is one of the many things that made the show so enjoyable. With its appealing art style and character designs which gradually changed and improved as the show went on over the years, unique episodes, and humor that was really smart for its time.
Or 25 days in the pokey. Huh?
Wrong cartoon, Eddie.
Bingo.
Do it for Ed, Eddie.
I'd swear, but standards won't let me. Gankers! Extreme close-up!
Eddy and Eddy is a classic that truly delivered entertainment for 10 years all the way to its conclusion in 2009 with its first ever television movie, The Big Picture Show, ending the series with a bang. It was also one of the last shows of the Cartoons collectors, and once the show ended, so did the spirit of cartoons. This movie was so well written that watching this as an adult gave me some feels I never felt before when I watched this show. I'll never forget the first time I watched this movie at the age of 12 and had the feeling of suspense watching the intro, full of silence and ambience, where it felt like a horror movie. So many questions were going through my head that to this day are still not answered. What was the scam that the Eds did? What happened that was so bad that they had to skip town to avoid certain death? And what the hell happened to the cul-de-sac kids? Not only did the movie finally show Eddy's brother in the flesh, but we also see the growth of the Eds and other characters as the movie went on. We see how Eddy's selfish personality and need for attention is based off of extreme insecurities in addition to the abuse he dealt with from his brother, seeing his brother's true personality, which was the complete opposite from how Eddy described him throughout the series, and finding out that they were all lies just so the kids could respect him more. In addition, it also showed how the Eds dealt with their problems that transpired in the movie by going through a lot of drama, having arguments, and eventually forgiving each other and bonding, and how the cul-de-sac kids went through their own journeys throughout the movie as well. The movie even delivered some heartfelt feels and great character development all the way to the end when the kids forgave the Eds and finally accepted them while Johnny became the new social outcast. Good riddance too, because he was annoying as hell. Everything this movie had delivered a perfect conclusion for the series rather than just plain ending it on a half-assed note like most cartoons nowadays usually do. Although the series ended back in 2009, it continued to have an impact on media in the coming years. Many people who grew up with the show still talk about it to this day, and it has since then received a cult following. There have been an abundance of YouTube poops, which I watched a lot during my preteen years, online fan clubs such as Edtropolis and Lost 3 Eds, fan arts, animated parodies. This show has left such a cultural impact that I feel like no matter how many years pass by, it will still be remembered. Hell, if I ever become a grandpa, I'm pretty sure it'll still be talked about. There's even a web series in the making created by George Abingdon and his team, and the series is going to be called Peach Creek, which serves as an unofficial sequel to Ed and Eddy, taking place a few years after the series ended. It focuses on the Eds in their final year of high school. George has created a YouTube channel that goes by the name of the web series, and so far he has only shown a trailer, a mini-sode showing the Cankers grown up, and the opening credits for the show. I'm honestly pretty excited for this show, and I can't wait to see more updates on it. You should definitely go check it out. I'll leave a link to the channel in the description in addition to the show's Twitter. Now, aside from the whole fan culture behind the show, like most of Cartoon Network's original series, Ed and Eddy have also expanded to multiple different medias, such as comics, including the Super Secret Crisis War crossover series, crossovers and other CN cartoons, such as making a small cameo appearance in the Grim Adventures of the K&D crossover special, and of course, video games. Now, the Eds have appeared in games that crossed over with other Cartoon Network series, such as Cartoon Network Speedway and Cartoon Network Block Party, both for the Game Boy Advance. But when it came to their own titles, there were only 3 video games based off of the series: Ed and Eddy Jawbreakers for the Game Boy Advance, Ed and Eddy Scam of the Century for the Nintendo DS, and finally Ed and Eddy The Mis-EDventures, which is the game we'll be looking at today. Also, there's technically 4 because there was also Giant Jawbreakers for the mobile phone back in 2004, but does anyone really care to count that? Or even remember that? And I didn't know about this until my buddy Talon of Ada Slide, who goes by Veldon's Most Wanted on YouTube, told me that there's a game called Nightmare on Edge Street, which is a fan-made beat-em-up game featuring the Eds as playable characters. Also, on a side note, just like with Samurai Jack, I don't count the old Flash games on Cartoon Network's website. Or maybe I should, because Flash recently shut down. Big sad. Anyway, enough nostalgia trips and childhood reminiscing. Let's check out the game that we all came to see. Ed and Eddy The Mis-EDventures, released on November 3rd, 2005 for the OG Xbox, PS2, GameCube, Windows PC, and Game Boy Advance, and was the first and only game based off of the series that was made for home consoles and PC. The game was published by the now defunct Midway Games, who, as we all know, were known for old school Mortal Kombat, NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, Rampage, and much more. The game was developed by Artificial Mind and Movement, also known as, and I'm going to try to keep a straight face saying this, A2 A2M, who used to go by Megatoon Studios from 1992 to 1997. Today, that same company who made this game now goes by the name of Behavior Interactive. Back then, from the years 2000 to 2010, when Behavior used to be called A2M, yes, I get it, it was an awkward name and I understand why they changed it, they made games such as The Grinch, Bugs Bunny and Taz Time Busters, Monsters Incorporated Scream Team, Scalar, and Naughty Bear. Aside from developing those games in addition to developing licensed games during the 7th generation of consoles, including their own titles such as Wet, Naughty Bear, and the PSP port of Dante's Inferno, and even being part of games such as Doritos Crash Course, nowadays Behavior is well known for its popular asymmetrical multiplayer horror game Dead by Daylight. The fact that the same guys who made this game previously made one of my favorite childhood games back then still really surprises me. Now let's see how much this game has aged and if it still holds up for fans of the series. Now when you start up this game, you are treated to the title screen along with that classic theme song, which after 21 years still never gets old. When you start a new game, there are 3 different save files, each named after our titular characters, and oh damn, I forgot I 100%ed this game. When was the last time I played this? Oh yeah. Anyway, I'm going to start a new game on Ed's save. Now the game starts us off with our first level titled Cool Your Ed, which acts as the game's tutorial. Now I just want to clarify first that the levels in this game are called scams, which makes sense considering it was one of the famous parts of the show. So in the first scam, the trio plans on making a scam where they make snow cones for the neighborhood kids but needs ice in order to make them. The Eds then go throughout the neighborhood backyards to find coolers containing the ice they need. After collecting enough ice in addition to bullying Jimmy and Sarah, which I had no regrets doing in addition to causing property damage, the Eds then make it to Rolf's backyard where he has a machine that makes giant meatballs in his shed.
Filthy animals do not belong in Rolf's shed!
I get it, so filthy animals do belong in Rolf's shed as long as they are being made into meat. That makes sense. Anyway, the Eds want to use the machine to make the snow cones, but Rolf doesn't let them for a reason that's hard for me to explain, so I'll let Rolf do the talking.
Surely you just can't let a baby Ed boy. Only after you have toiled in filth like the son of a shepherd can you use such a machine. Begone!
Jeez, what's with that guy?
So in order for them to use the machine, the Eds destroy Rolf's pig pen containing 3 Rolfrits. Rolf offers the Eds a chance to use the meatball machine if they help put the pigs back in their pen.
Machine when you're done.
After successfully saving Rolf's bacon supply, the Eds then finally create their snow cones. Meat-flavored snow cones to be exact by the looks of it. At least Ed enjoys it. In the next scam, Jimmy is throwing a birthday party which the Eds weren't invited to. Well, considering they ruined Jimmy's last party, I can't really blame him. But then again, they weren't invited to that one either, and they thought there was a conspiracy group against them, so I guess I can't really blame the Eds either. Like I said, they never get invited to anything. So the Eds try to sneak into the party by going through the sewers, which is infested to the brim with rats, gators, and clams for some reason. Is it just me, or does this show take place somewhere in Florida? Anyway, after crawling through the sewers, they eventually make it to Jimmy's backyard, where the Eds destroy the piñatas that were made for the party. One had an actual jawbreaker, one had... Who the hell puts cats in a piñata? And what is this, plates of fish? Jeez, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't want to come to this party with favors like these. Unfortunately, one of the piñatas had the Canker sisters in it. Again, wouldn't want to come to this party. The Eds then make a run for it, and the last part of the level then switches to this first-person mode with Double D using his slingshot to fight against the Cankers, where you have to hit objects that fall on Marie, such as beehives or piñatas that contain refrigerators? Jesus, what kind of party is this? If there's anything these piñatas should have, it should be a damn GameCube. Now that's the kind of party I like to go to. After running the Cankers out of the party, the Eds then find out that the party ended much to their dismay. And to add insult to injury, they didn't even get any cake, just candles covered in icing.
You can lick the icing from my candles.
Boy, Ed really was never the picky type, was he? In the next scam called Must Be Something I Ed, the Eds find out from Rolf that it is free Jawbreaker Day at the candy store. Again. So the Eds need to make it there as fast as they can before it closes. Luckily for them, Eddy knows a shortcut. After going through the backyards and eventually making a pathway that leads to their school, Peach Creek Junior High, they come across Kevin? What the hell happened to his chin? He looks like Stan Smith from American Dad. No wonder he needs that bike everywhere he goes. His entire body structure probably can't handle the weight his chin has. Anyway, Kevin won't let the Eds pass unless they play his game of knocking down the trash cans. The Eds knock them down and continue, but are stopped by bees and dropped a cage on Johnny, who eventually had a jar of honey on him. And just to clarify, he refused to help the Eds after they asked. After distracting the bees with honey in exchange for Johnny's life, the Eds finally make it to the candy store before it closed. However, the jawbreaker that Eddy eats was apparently covered in foot powder, which gives him an allergic reaction. Don't know how that jawbreaker got past the health department, but if I were Eddy, I would sue. Now, the Eds need to sneak back to Eddy's house without getting caught by any of the neighborhood kids by either hiding behind telephone poles, which literally does not work well at all, or sneaking past the kids in multiple ways by either hiding in cardboard boxes or tractors to make sure they don't see you. The Eds eventually make it back to Eddy's house, but unfortunately were followed by the kids who proceed to take pictures of Eddy.
Say cheese!
Nice effort, Ed. So in the fourth scam called Ed on Arrival, the Eds come across Rolf in his Urban Ranger attire. Remember the Urban Rangers? Basically the show's version of the Boy Scouts? Anyway, Eddy wants a badge that Rolf has, but in order to acquire it, the Eds need to traverse through an obstacle course made at the construction site. Eddy decided not to waste his time on it, but changed his mind after hearing that Rolf will be giving the badge to Kevin since he was the last victor. The Eds accept the challenge, but were unaware that in order for Kevin to keep his title as current champion, he booby-trapped the entire course. After going through the course and its challenges and puzzles, the Eds face off against Rolf's goat Victor, and after defeating him, the Eds make it to their final challenge: race against Kevin to the finish line. The Eds beat Kevin, much to the dismay of literal Shovel Chin, and are awarded the badge, but considering that there are just 3 of them and cannot share one badge, Rolf does the honorable Urban Ranger thing and tears it into 3 pieces, which Eddy wasn't too happy about.
Here, I will trade you for mine. It's got shiny.
Okay, I don't understand why getting that badge was so important to him in the first place. I mean, doesn't he hate the Urban Rangers? I just don't get how...
Who's there?
Oh, wait, my leg's cut.
Break it up. Get out of the way. Make room.
I think I'm sitting on a nail.
My turn.
Hey! Guys, come on, really? Do you really gotta break my walls? Anyway. So in the next scam called Nightmare on Edge Street, which ironically is also the name of the Ed and Eddy beat-em-up fan game I mentioned previously, Jimmy's favorite stuffed animal, Mr. Yum Yum, is trapped in the same abandoned house from the episode Honor Thy Ed. Eddy offers to get him back in exchange for a quarter, but Jimmy refuses and will only offer payment if Mr. Yum Yum is returned safe and in one piece. The Eds then venture into the house only to find out that the Kanker sisters are holding Mr. Yum Yum hostage and will trade him for boyfriend presents. So the Eds must get one present for each Kanker. By the way, if you go up to the Kankers without a present, this happens. So after venturing through the house and avoiding traps and rats and bats and spiders? Fuck that, I'd rather just leave Yum Yum to his fate! Anyway, the Eds get presents for the Kankers, with them being a ship in a bottle for Lee, which I don't get why, because they already have one as a family heirloom, a barrel of axle grease for Marie, which I guess is for her to do mechanic-related stuff, and a taxidermy book for May, which... You know what, I'm not even going to assume anything. After giving the Kankers their gifts, Mr. Yum Yum is set free from his imprisonment. The Eds then leave the house with Yum Yum and return it to Jimmy, who is happy that his stuffed friend is back with him safe and sound. Until he pops in half. The distraught Jimmy then runs away crying, leaving the Eds without their payment.
Hey, you owe us a quarter.
Well, to be fair, he did say bring him back in one piece, so... Alright, so on to the final scam. Ed marks the spot. Eddy has a secret stash of jawbreakers that he was saving for him and his 2 best friends, but were shocked to find out that they were missing. The Eds find a piece of a map that will lead them to their missing jawbreakers if they find the other pieces. After collecting all the pieces of the map, the Eds find out that the Kankers were the culprits in stealing their jawbreakers, and the map leads them to their hideout. After going through a series of traps, our 3 heroes are eventually led to the heart of the Kankers' hideout, which also holds their secret jawbreaker stash. The Eds defeat the Kankers by knocking down the pillar that they were standing on and take back their jawbreakers and escape. but their victory was cut short when their escape path leads to a room set up for a wedding. The Eds find themselves cornered, and the scam ends with the Cankers about to make out with the Eds, much to their dismay.
Roll credits. We're done here.
Oh wait, I forgot, we aren't done yet. So throughout the game, each level has a sandbox which can be dug into using Ed. Each sandbox includes a piece of a costume. Collecting all pieces, in which there are 6 in total, unlocks 2 bonus scams. You know what, I'm just gonna say scams and levels back and forth because I'm tired of just saying scams. 3 pieces make Ed's costume from the episode The Day the Ed Stood Still and unlocks the scam Edzilla, and the other 3 pieces makes the Space Outlaws outfit that the Eds wore from the episode Dawn of the Eds, and unlocks the scam Rebel Robot Ranch, which, is it just me or do I find it weird that there is a level in this game without the use of the word Ed in it for the sake of the title pun? Also, wasn't it called Robot Rebel Ranch in that episode? Edzilla starts off with the Eds building another Edtropolis like they did in the episode Urban Ed, which by the way is one of my top favorite episodes.
Quack! Quack! Hey, you're gonna hurt somebody! This ain't a cartoon!
Eddie and Double D are both excited about the results of the city, but then Ed has an episode thinking he's a monster. The level then goes into Ed's point of view in this black and white form reminiscent of the old Godzilla films. Ed is taking his persona of Edzilla and is tasked with destroying Edtropolis by taking down buildings and fighting against tanks that shoot Mr. Yum-Yums. And oh look, the statue of Johnny.
You maniacs! You blew it up!
After destroying the city, Edzilla makes it to the Chunky Puff factory, where he fights against his arch-nemesis, the Cankerator, who is obviously a parody of Godzilla's arch-nemesis, King Ghidorah. Edzilla defeats the Cankerator by throwing giant Chunky Puffs. After defeating the Cankers, we are switched back to real life, where the city was completely demolished by Ed's episode, who snaps out of it and says the same line from the episode where his monster persona originated from. In the second bonus scam, you know what, I'm just gonna call it Robot Rebel Ranch because it's what I'm used to and how I remember it. The Eds, in their Space Outlaws uniforms, were going to escape the planet they're trapped on by robot rebels, but before they could escape, they were attacked and Ed was taken prisoner. Eddie and Double D then fight their way through robot rebels and free Ed from his imprisonment. The Eds then continue to fight their way through to escape and come across the level's final boss, a giant robot rebel with a cowboy hat. The Eds defeat the boss and the level ends the same way the episode it was based off of ended. Sarah bitching at Ed to get home for dinner, except all 3 Eds are pissed at her and Eddie taking the final line that perfectly describes Sarah.
Killjoy!
Couldn't have said it better myself, Eddie. So yeah, obviously all of these levels were made originally for the game and none of these were episodes from the actual show. But the funny thing about this is that some of these levels were based off of and took influence from episodes of the show. I mean, must be something I Ed obviously took influence from Don't Rain on My Ed, with the guys trying to get to the candy store, except unlike the episode where they failed to make it before the store closed, the game level showed that they were able to make it, but Eddie suffered an allergic reaction as a result, which I guess that part also took influence from the X Marks the Ed episode where Eddie got a pimple. I mean, at the end of the level, the kids even turned into a paparazzi and took pictures of him just like they did in the episode. Another example of this is the level Nightmare on Edge Street, which, like I said, is influenced from the episode Honor Thy Ed, where the abandoned house first appeared in. Pin the Tail on the Ed seems to take reference from the episode In Like Ed, the episode where Jimmy had a birthday party which the Eds weren't invited to, and they ruined it thinking it was some sort of underground organization against them. I think. It's been a while since I've seen that episode. And of course, Robot Rebel Ranch takes influence from Dawn of the Eds. It's like they took the plot elements from certain episodes of the show and made them into levels for this game. Which there's nothing wrong with that, because even though some levels seem like alternative versions of the episodes they were based off of, it still felt like they were unique in their own way and had a sense of originality and charm. And the good thing is that it still has the same humor and fun like the show had. What's funny is that the first scam, Cool Your Ed, is the only scam that seems like an original level for the game that wasn't based off of any episode that I can think of. I mean, with the whole snow cone thing, Eddie did eventually make a scam involving snow cones in the series' final episode Look Before You Ed with his snow cone cannon, but that happened after the game came out. About 3 years to be exact. And the most ironic part about this level is that although the levels in this game are referred to as scams, Cool Your Ed is the only scam that involves the Eds coming up with and eventually succeeding in creating a scam. And I just said scam 3 times in one sentence. Although I enjoyed all the levels of this game, my favorites would have to be Ed on Arrival, Edzilla, and Robot Rebel Ranch. Ed on Arrival, I really enjoyed the design of the level. When you see how the obstacle course looks throughout the construction site, it's exactly how you would expect it to look like if you watched the show and understood its crazy cartoony architectures. Oh look, the Chimp World sign from the episode See No Ed, the same episode I mentioned earlier where the Eds didn't appear until the very end. Edzilla is a fun level because of how much of a parody it is of Godzilla. You've got everything, the monsters, the black and white aesthetic, and the destruction. It's so fun to destroy buildings in this level, and I loved picking up the tanks and throwing them at the buildings. This is also the only level where you play as one of the characters, and that of course is Ed. And Robot Rebel Ranch I'm kinda biased about because Dawn of the Eds is also one of my top favorite episodes. Not just that, but the level is also very unique compared to the other levels in the game. I will get to that in a bit when I talk about the gameplay. I will say this, I do appreciate that the bonus scams felt very unique compared to the other levels of the game. And again, although the levels took influence from episodes of the series, they were still enjoyable and felt like actual episodes from the show. Just wish it wasn't so damn short because playing this for the review made me realize that it was shorter than I remembered it being. Then again, this is a TV license game. Now as for the game itself, as per usual I'm going to start off with the game's graphics. As you can already tell, the game's graphics look like they were made into the work of cell shading, which as I mentioned in my Samurai Jack review, that they use this type of animation for the games to emulate their show's art style. I also mentioned that with some games it worked well and aged pretty well, and some were Eddy and Eddy is kind of in the range. At least when it comes to character models. Now I will admit, overall the graphics, animations, and level designs were done really well. Back then, Behavior did a really good job capturing the aesthetic the show had for this game. When I play this, I feel like I'm actually in the show itself. For a 15-year-old game from one of the last years of the 6th generation, the art style, animation, and graphics for this game have held up and aged really well. As for the character models, this is where the part comes in. Now some of the characters in this game look pretty decent and look almost exactly like how they looked in the show. I mean, Rolf looks pretty decent, Jimmy looks pretty decent, Johnny looks decent, Naz looks decent, even the Cankers look decent. The only characters in this game that seemed off were of course Kevin, which again looks like an actual shovel chin, and the other characters that looked a bit off were Sarah and the Eds. Now Ed didn't look too bad honestly, but Eddy and Double D seemed a bit off. Eddy looks like he has a bunch of wrinkles all over his face and he looks like an English bulldog. Double D on the other hand looks like he has a double chin. Honestly, Ed looks like the only one of the trio who looks the most like his cartoon counterpart, at least when it comes to the original animation. Sarah looks like something out of a cursed painting, which with how her character is, that wouldn't be a surprise, and we already talked about how ugly Kevin looks. Like honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if kids back in my day got nightmares looking at this. But I do know I would get nightmares from this. This was terrifying. Now aside from the game's in-game cutscenes, there are also cutscenes that happen before the start of the level and after the end of the level. These cutscenes were animated to look more like the show and match its art style. The weird thing about these animated cutscenes is that the animations and even movements of the characters don't appear to flow the same way as they did in the show. The animated cutscenes for this game look like they were animated with less frames and look stiff and sometimes jumpy. The characters' lips don't even sync with the words they speak. Now watch this scene from one of the episodes and then watch the scene from the game afterwards.
Huh? Finders keepers!
Eddy?
What? What? Wait a minute! We can't let a chump like Rolf keep us from this party! We gotta get in there! Oh, I know! We can crawl through the stinky sewers like a bacteria-fusing blob, and I was a teenage sludge hippie!
I don't know. It seems terribly risky and unsanitary, to say the least.
It'll be a cinch! Come on, boys! We got a party to catch!
See how weird it is? I guess they had to do it because of limitations, which I understand, but it's still a little weird. But despite these flaws, Behavior did a pretty good job capturing the feel of the show for this game.
I think we did a pretty good job so far.
Now let's look at how the game plays. Now the Mis-EDventures is played in a third-person perspective. Players play as the show's 3 main protagonists, and each of them have their own abilities, gadgets, attacks, and special moves. The X button is used for attacking, the Y button is used for a special means depending on which of the Eds you play, the B button is used for a special gadget, the right trigger is used to cycle between the Eds, and the left trigger activates their special moves. Eddy can use a yo-yo or a chain wallet as his main attack, and his special gadget is the famous El Mongo Stink Bomb.
My brother showed me how to make it before he went away.
Except unlike the episode where the stink bomb was gigantic and the smell literally affected the entire cul-de-sac,
I can't breathe!
the one Eddy uses in this game is small enough to use as a special weapon. I love the little farting noises it makes. You can use the stink bomb to stun enemies, although it doesn't always work, but I like to use it on the show's characters when I'm in the cul-de-sac. Pushing the Y button as Eddy allows you to do any random thing depending on the object and the level you're in. For example, in the Scam Must Be Something I Ed, you can push the Y button to hide in cardboard boxes or bushes and sneak past the kids Metal Gear Solid style. Or you can do something really funny like messing up these paintings of Sarah in the same level. Double D's basic attack is a ruler, which has to be the most fitting weapon for his character, and his special weapon is a slingshot that shoots water balloons. Also, when you push the black button on the Xbox controller, it puts you in a first-person perspective. In Double D's case, you can use this while using the slingshot to provide better aim and accuracy, which is really nice because trying to aim with this thing in third person really sucks. Double D's thing when you push the Y button allows him to repair items to help progress. And finally, Ed's basic attack is using his head. Literally.
I am a woodpecker! Sup with dirt?
Hey, another well-known line from the show. But that's basically Ed's only attack, and he doesn't have any special gadgets like the other Eds. When you push the Y button as Ed, he can pick up and throw objects. This can be used against enemies or moments such as trash can bowling. You can even pick up certain enemies after stunning them. Pushing the Y button when in a sandbox also allows Ed to dig in the sand, which as I mentioned previously will land you one of the 6 pieces of the costume you need to unlock the bonus scams. Now the Eds each have their own special abilities that can be used to help progress through levels, solve puzzles, and to go through areas that are impossible to do individually. For example, the Batter Ed is used to break weak walls to progress the level and find hidden rooms. It is also used to break through weaker obstacles and can be used to progress the level faster and for moments where speed is of the essence, such as the race against Kevin. It's also used for fights against Rolf's goat Victor. It's also really funny to see them crash when you hit a wall. Wipeout! Double D's Trample Ed is used to extend your reach by pushing the A button, such as hitting the pinatas and pin the tail on the Ed. And when you push the B button, it allows Double D to jump forward to hard to reach places and gaps to get around to help the Eds progress. Finally, Eddy's Tower of Eddy allows all the Eds to form into a tower that allows them to either obtain items that are hard to reach, which can be picked up pushing the X button, hiding behind the telephone poles in Must Be Something I Ed, which again I wouldn't recommend because it literally doesn't work when I did it, or by going through narrow terrain such as the obstacle course in Ed on Arrival and the spider nest in Ed Marks the Spot when trying to get the spider egg. So in Ed Marks the Spot, Jimmy has one of the map pieces and won't give it to the Eds unless they trade him for a jawbreaker. So they go to a spider's nest to retrieve a spider egg which somehow looks similar to a jawbreaker in some way. The Eds give Jimmy the quote-unquote jawbreaker. Okay, I will admit Jimmy is an annoying character, but even I think that goes a little too far. The enemies in this game are nothing special. They're mainly wild animals such as rats, bats, gators, clams, spiders, and the occasional bulldog here and there. Most of the enemies appear in all levels, while some only appear in 1 or 2. Some enemies have different variations of each other as well. For example, there's the male bulldogs, which are stationary and only attack you when you come near them. And then there are the female bulldogs, which only appear in Ed Marks the Spot, where they chase after and attack the Eds as soon as they see them. With the female dogs, you can attack them until they disappear just like any any other enemy, but with the male dogs you gotta strategize because they can't be attacked. One example is in Cool Your Ed, you can find a cat in one of the first 2 backyards. Stun him, pick him up with Ed, and toss him at the bulldog. The bulldog will chase away the cat, leaving an opening for you to progress and no longer making the dog a problem. This is the only time in the game where you can use this strategy though. Then there's this one on Must Be Something I Ed where you have to sneak past the dog while hiding in the cardboard box. There's also 3 different squirrels in this game. The brown squirrels are harmless and can be used to throw at things when you stun them, while the red squirrels are the ones who try to attack you. And the little shits cling on to you when you do. The clams from the second level do the same thing, and the only way to get rid of them when they do cling on to you is constantly jump until they let go. Finally, there's the fat squirrel, which only appears in Ed on arrival. This squirrel throws his nuts at you.
Hey, phrasing!
Again, not the most exciting enemies, but still, I guess they had to come up with something. Not like they could add zombies in this. Now, since I talked about the gameplay and enemies and everything, I'm going to go back and talk about the level Robot Rebel Ranch and why it's one of my favorites in this game. For one thing, the enemies in this level are actual robots. There are these robo-dogs that behave the same way as the female bulldogs that I mentioned previously, and these red infantry bots that can shoot you from a distance. Both of these guys appeared in Dawn of the Eds. Then there are these new enemies which are stationary turret bots that can also shoot you from a distance. The Eds, however, come equipped with new gear. Eddy still uses his chain wallet or yo-yo, I still don't know exactly what that is, but his stink bomb looks like an ion grenade in this level. That still makes fart sounds. Double D, however, has a lightsaber that replaces his ruler and a blaster that replaces his slingshot. And unlike the slingshot, which mainly stuns enemies, the blaster can do actual damage. Double D really isn't messing around in this level, is he? In fact, you can actually beat this just playing as him. I'd recommend going into first person mode when using his blaster for better accuracy, because in third person mode, not only does it take a while for Double D to take out his blaster and attack, it's also not always accurate. Aside from the blaster, although everything else is purely cosmetic, there's still really nice details. Ed, however, doesn't have any changes. He still basically plays the same. These are the reasons why this is one of my favorite levels, aside from being based off of one of my top favorite episodes of the show. There's even clones of Jimmy. I think the Jedi will be fine from Order 66. Now, as a kid, playing the crap out of this game has helped me to find some exploits to help you out with the levels, whether they were glitches or just little areas that helped out. For example, in Ed on Arrival, when you get to the racetrack to go against Kevin, you can activate Batter Ed before the cutscene activates. This will allow you to get a head start on him in the race. Another exploit I did as a kid is in Rebel Robot Ranch, and this is one of my favorite exploits. So during the boss of this level, what you're supposed to do is destroy these nodes. These things were found throughout the level, and destroying them disables the turret bots. In the boss, however, destroying them temporarily disables them, leaving him open for attacks. When he's not attacking you, you can also use Double D to hack into the turret bots and use them against the boss. He destroys them eventually, but they're still helpful. But you see, what I like to do is go to this area in the back of the boss battle and hide behind the fridge. Then you just gotta peek your head out a bit, not too much, you don't want the boss to hit you, and then go into first person mode as Double D and just spam the hell out of the B button until the boss is destroyed. Ah, old video game exploits, they never get old. Alright, I almost forgot to mention the hub world. So whenever you finish a level in this game, you revert back to the cul-de-sac, which acts as the game's hub world. Here you can find the other neighborhood kids, venture around and see the areas from the show, and this is also where you start your levels. Now this game would be pretty boring without any collectibles, right? Aside from the costumes you can get from the sandbox, each level except for the 2 bonus levels have a chicken. Whenever you come across a chicken, you have a limited amount of time to get to it. Once time runs out, don't worry, you can start again. But when you get to the chicken, you have to attack it to stun it, and then while playing as Ed, you pick up the chicken, which causes it to explode, and it drops an Easter egg, which unlocks fun bonus content. When you collect all 6, you go to the cheats in the pause menu. One of the cheats gives the Eds big heads, which makes them look even more hilarious. Ladies and gentlemen, Funko's first line of Edda and Eddy Pops. The second cheat gives the Eds tiny heads, which honestly kinda reminds me of something.
What happened to my head?
Classic. The third Easter egg allows you to use the Space Outlaws outfit in any of the levels of the game. You just turn it on in the hub world, then go to any of the areas to start a level, and then you'll see the Eds wear the outfits in the beginning of the level. They sadly don't have the weapon cosmetic changes like they did in the bonus level. The other 3 Easter eggs unlock access to these 3 movie booths, which can also be found in the hub world. The first booth plays the classic My Best Friend Plank music video. The second booth plays voice samples of the Eds voice actors Samson, Hill, and Vincent, while showing showing screenshots of them in the recording studio. And the third booth shows the trailer for the game. Finally, it wouldn't be an Ed and Eddy game without jawbreakers. Each level in the game has jawbreakers that you can find, and each Ed has a unique line whenever you collect one as them. Some jawbreakers can be hidden and you'll have to do a little extra searching for them to keep an eye out, while some can be obtained by alternative means, whether it be solving puzzles or so on. For example, in Must Be Something I Ed, you come across Jimmy and Sarah near the end of the level. Now with the use of the bush, you can sneak past them without being seen. However, Jimmy has one of the jawbreakers you can collect. In order to collect it, all you have to do is throw an El Mongo stink bomb at them, Jimmy will drop it, and they both will run away, leaving the jawbreaker up for the taking. Another example is an Ed on arrival. You eventually come across this generator, which you need to find 4 batteries for each matching the color of the slot. In that same area, there is a jawbreaker trapped behind a door and there is no way to get in. This drove me nuts as a kid because I could never understand what to do. Back then, I was at 99% game completion, and in order to get 100%, I had to get that one last jawbreaker, and I spent weeks, maybe even months, trying to figure out how to get it. However, thanks to reading the instruction manual at the time, I was given a clue on how to get this. On the front of that building, there are 4 colored spots. In order to unlock the door, you need to collect each battery in its colored order from left to right. Once you do this, both the door leading to the next part of the level will unlock, and the door to the jawbreaker will unlock too. There are 2 different variations of jawbreakers in this game. There's the normal jawbreakers, which can be found in the levels of the game, and then there are the vintage jawbreakers, which can only be obtained by the giant gumball machine that can be found in the playground of the hub world. I mean, yeah, forget the candy store. There's a giant-ass gumball machine in the middle of the playground holding our jawbreakers. If they had those types of things when I was a kid in the playgrounds I went to, then there'd be lines that would last for days. Anyway, the vintage jawbreakers can be obtained from the vending machine, but you need to pay for it with in-game money, which can be found throughout the game. The silver coins, which I guess are quarters, are very common and can be found in every level by either breaking boxes or other items. The gold coins, which are uncommon, can be found in either hidden parts or hard-to-reach areas of the level. The weird thing is that while the common coins look like quarters, they only give you 1 cent. Gold coins actually work like quarters and give you 25 cents. So does that make the silver coins pennies? I don't know. If you're wanting to farm for more quarters, the best level to do that is Ed Marks the Spot. There are a ton of items and boxes to break, especially the flamingo decorations, which there is also a shit ton of as well. You can batter Ed through them and they drop a lot of coins. And when you fight against Victor again later in the same level, after you beat him you have the option to fight him again, and you can do it for as many times as you want. Beating him a certain number of times not only gives you the last piece of the map, but also rewards you with a jawbreaker and a maximum of 3 of the gold coins. Just play the level 2 or 3 times using what I just mentioned and you'll be rich in no time. Now back to the vintage jawbreakers. Every time you buy a jawbreaker from the machine, the price increases. Inflation at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. What I like about these vintage jawbreakers is that they are named after the different countries of the world. Once you get all the vintage jawbreakers, you basically have all the jawbreakers in the game. You can go in the main menu and see the jawbreakers you collected, and they have different flavors and descriptions, which some are funny references and quotes from the show, while others are kind of weird. Candied beets, isn't that what Rolf ate in the Urban Ranger episode? Doesn't that contradict the purpose of the jawbreaker? Now this would be my type of jawbreaker. Okay, this one's actually pretty funny. Hey, a reference to the episode where Ed bought jawbreakers with Sarah's money. Oh look, another Honor Thy Ed episode reference. This is definitely Rolf's type of jawbreaker. Found Ed's. And another one for him. Remember when the Eds tried to make Jimmy into a sumo wrestler? Ew. Ugh, now we're getting into the weird range. I feel bad for anyone that takes this jawbreaker. Alright, now on to the vintage. Okay, I'm German, but I would not want to eat this. Funny how even the vintage jawbreakers have episode references. I would not want to eat this, it sounds cursed. Oh look, a quote from the episode where Kevin stole the Ed spot at the swimming hole. Is it weird that I think this is the most appealing sounding jawbreaker to eat? I mean, I love sushi just as much as the next guy, but collecting all the jawbreakers, Easter eggs, costumes, and beating all the levels will earn you a big, whopping 100% completion status for this game. Now, although this game may be a bit average and doesn't really deliver a lot in replay value, it is still a great game to play if you're a fan of the show like I am. It's also a great game to play if you're looking for a nostalgia trip, and it would be a great game for your kids to play too. This game was also apparently planned to be backwards compatible on the Xbox 360 at the time, but was cancelled for unknown
unknown reasons. This game is not super hard to come across and it's pretty cheap online depending on where you look, so I definitely recommend checking this out. Apparently I heard the Xbox version of this game is getting harder to find, but you probably won't have to look too hard if you're looking on eBay or Amazon. I'd give this game an 8 out of 10. I know that my review may sound a bit biased, but once you set aside the minor issues this game has, it's really fun to play and delivers a lot of nostalgia. Honestly, after playing this game again, I wouldn't mind us getting another Eddy and Eddy video game. Yeah, I know Antonucci said that the series is buried and he has no plans revisiting it, but if he could at least be the supervising producer for the game while giving the developers rights to make it, it would be awesome. I mean, come on, Samurai Jack got a new game in 2020, 3 years after the show ended, and there's even talks of more Samurai Jack stuff possibly being made. But in the end, I guess that would be considered beating a dead horse, but it still would be nice to see the Eds be shown in a modern-day media platform in some way. Hell, I'd even settle for a remastered port of this game for the current-day consoles, because if this game was on the Switch, I'd probably take it with me everywhere I go. Still, definitely recommend for 90s kids and retro collectors.
You know, I really miss watching that show. It's literally impossible to actually find a legal way to watch it. They only released the first 2 seasons on DVD in the box set here in America, while the other seasons were released somewhere outside of the Western regions. And it's like, I really want to watch this show again. And they used to have it on Netflix not too long ago, well, about 6 years ago, I think, but they even took that off. It's not available on any common streaming service nowadays. Hell, it's not even on Boomerang, but then again, even Boomerang has gone downhill. Well, I guess there's really no other way to watch it, so might as well. Let's see. Wait a minute. Really? No way. Wow, that's some of the best news that I've heard in a while. Eddy and Eddy is coming to HBO Max. Actually, it already came to HBO Max. It released today. Not only that, but K&D and Courage the Cowardly Dog are even appearing on the streaming service. Well, that's some of the best news that I've heard in a while. It's the beginning of the new year, and already it's starting out better than last year. Well, I know what I'm going to be binging, but after I'm done with my binging, tune in next time for my next review, Star Wars The Clone Wars on the original Xbox. Thank you all for watching, and if you'll excuse me...